So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Caitlin, she, her, hers. I'm the operations manager for the Alliance for Nonprofit Impact, and I also run 401 Gives, my favorite part of my job. I'm here with some panelists today, and instead of me yapping on, I'll let them introduce themselves. So, I'll start with Angie because she's first to my right, and then you can pop it over to another panelist.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Escalante. I am the social and digital media manager over at the United Way of Rhode Island. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella if you're using Spanish. I'll punt it over to Ray.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Ray Nunez. I wear a lot of hats right now. I am currently transitioning out of being the interim CMO at the United Way of Rhode Island. I'm also the CEO of a small marketing agency out of Rhode Island called Nunez. He, him, his. Really excited to be here. Let's go with Paige. How you doing, Paige?
Awesome. Good. How are you, Ray?
Excellent.
So, like Ray mentioned, my name is Paige Zuber Weishaus. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I am the assistant director of social media over at Bryant University in Smithfield. And my favorite part of my job is that I get to work with incredible students every single day.
Awesome.
And I'll kick it off to Jude to close this out.
How's everyone doing today? My name is Jude Amoako. I'm the founder of Based on a True Story. We're a marketing personal branding agency here in Rhode Island. I also oversee the partnerships and community organizations for Noel Academy right here in downtown Providence as well. And I go by he and him.
Awesome. So before we get started, this training will be recorded and posted on the Alliance YouTube channel and the 401 Gives page. So if you have to jump off early or your friends that couldn't make it, they will be able to see it. And so really quickly, we're just going to jump right in and start with Ray and Angie. So my first question to you is, what do you think are the key elements of a successful social media campaign? It's a two-parter. And how do you balance managing brand voice, resonating with your audience, all while keeping up with trends?
Angie, I'm gonna keep drinking my tea and I'll let you start off.
Absolutely. So some of the key elements is honestly consistency. Anything that you do on social media, it's all about keeping that brand voice and essentially just tapping into that creative piece where you're creating engaging content, but at the same time, it's also fun and people are going into the comment section. You want to deliver and create content that people are reposting and are talking about. You're just always going to buzz on it. You want to walk around the office and have that conversation with someone saying, hey, I love what you did last night, so on and so forth. I think that social media campaigns are critical to anything you want to do, whether it's a relaunch, a rebrand, or even if it's a small initiative. It really is important to have that element of keeping the tracking alive. And that is maintaining that brand health and being able to see and look what's working, what's not working, what's your consumer behavior, what are people talking about, what's the buzz, and just being on top of that is critical.
Yeah, the consistency is key. I'll add the authenticity. I think everybody has a really good BS detector for social media these days. And I mean, all of you are working in the nonprofit space. So if your audience, your community is having a totally separate understanding of you from online to offline, there's a problem. So you need to show up authentically. You can't be this like witty, funny, Duolingo style social media account on Instagram. And then when we step into your offices, it's very cold, it's very sterile, it's not welcoming, it's not hospitable, right? It's just showing up as your true authentic selves. If I go on your website and you have a mission that's all about positivity, and maybe you're working in the food insecurity space and you're always talking about, hope and all the positive vibes, I want to see that reflected on your socials. I want to see real humans, right? So it's about showing up as the most authentic version of yourself. How do you like manage or balance, like you said, Katie, like the brand voice? That's wicked hard right now, because everybody's trying to be extra polished, extra professional because the state of the world is on fire. But I think that those who are paying attention to you, who are receiving services from you, who are just involved in your network, are still really hoping that you continue to show up as your true self. I don't think folks want you to show up differently now, especially when they need you the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a part of that brand voice that you're talking about, that engagement, is the storytelling piece and how you show the work that you're doing every day. And Jude, you are classified as a professional storyteller. Like that's your bread and butter right there. And so what does storytelling mean to you? Big picture. And then also how do you use that storytelling to foster community, create a sense of belonging, especially now when we're kind of in uncertain times?
Mm. So that's a great question. So first of all, storytelling to me is being able to be the author of your own story. There's an African proverb that goes, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. So storytelling to me is actually understanding your own story for yourself, being able to combat and tell yourself in times that you might be in trouble or times that you don't have confusion or different things that you can be able to reiterate who you are to yourself. And for me, what storytelling for me at the time was a cure to imposter syndrome. So I know a lot of people might have a hard time with imposter syndrome, or some people might struggle with the idea of like, I'm not doing enough, or how can I continue to do enough? Um, Storytelling to me at the time was like, wait, once I understand who I am and myself and what the elements that created my story, it allowed me to be able to fight that thought process of like, wait, I am doing enough. I made it this far and it can continue to make it that far. So storytelling to me is really being able to narrate and become the author of your story. And then that going off what Ray and Angie were saying, that aspect allows you to build your community. It allows you to be really authentic, what Ray was saying, because that's what we want to see. And especially that's what helps your brand. Everyone's trying to kind of fit into a mold, but really everyone's just trying to see who's real about what they care about, who's actually talking about what they're saying they're walking, if that makes sense. So when you just sit down and just follow actually, this is my story, this is who I believe I am, this is who I want to be, this is who I see myself as, um, you start building a real community based on the people around you and the people that actually attract to what you care about. And that can actually make dramatic change because you're no longer having to fit a mold. You have the ability to be authentic when you show up into rooms, and you don't have to become, I don't know, you don't have to tell yourself that you have to act a certain way or look a certain way or be a certain part. It's like, this is who I am. I'm showing up and I'm helping tell my story in this manner. And it's setting other people free to be able to tell their story and how they feel and how they want to show up.
Yeah, I love that idea of fighting imposter syndrome through storytelling, especially when we put it in the framework of like fundraising and making asks. If you've lined up everything that you've done and all the work that you've done, it makes that ask a lot easier and it makes your donors able to connect with you a lot faster. And I just want to quickly pause before I give Jude another question. If you all in the audience have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll do a Q&A at the end, but if anything comes up, feel free to toss it in the chat.
Hey, Katie, before you switch over to the question, can I have the
Yeah.
first spicy take of the afternoon, the first
Yes, you
hot take?
can.
So everything Jude said is so powerful for our own narratives, for our own personal branding. But as organizations, that's also 100% true. We have to reclaim and own the mission that we know is true to our organization and who we serve. There, and this is no shade to anybody specifically, but there's many organizations that have a board that might be disconnected from who they were, the constituents that they serve, right? And they might say, put out this type of content on social media. On 401Gives, talk about this and this and this. But that's not who is following you. That's not who's paying attention to you. And that's not who you're serving at the end of the day. And that goes across the spectrum, but it even goes as far as like, the languages that we choose to use. Like if we want to be, more simplified, less technical and jargon and nonprofit, jargon, that's just as important as the multilingual approach we might take on social media. But we need to reclaim that as people working inside of the organizations and not be influenced by our peer orgs, our boards, our donors, as much as we love them. They don't drive social strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jude, you do that storytelling through videography. That is like your central home. That's what you built your company on. So how do you use visuals to help tell these stories, both in like a technical way when you're filming? Are there things that you like to highlight or the things that you like to do? But also like the vibes. Like what do people find appealing? What do you find appealing? What doesn't well on social media?
Yeah, so I would say a technical way, how we always again approach everything is to really sit down and hear who we're talking with, hear our clients or hear the organization that we're working with, because what we really want to pull out, and if I'll be honest, well, with the boats, we like to actually sometimes talk about the hard times, because in a whole story, we don't want to just talk about the achievements. What kind of drove you to become who you are, or what kind of maybe made you think, oh, I got to keep swimming. I can't stop here. So when we think about our story and how we think about technically, we have a real authentic and organic conversation. Like that's how we always start. And we have this conversation that feels like actually really light. And from there, it's like we're pulling out the things that we're not even thinking about. Like sometimes we make small little comments of like, okay, when I was when I was telling my friend that I want to start this business, it was like a really sunny day and I was listening to the Beatles. What does the Beatles mean to you? Why were you listening to the Beatles? What feeling did that bring out of you? And then we actually captivate that in the video. So like we're really actually trying to show a feeling. So my name is Jude. So let's say I'll just throw an example, Hey Jude. But we have Hey Jude playing in the beginning because it's not even for the audience as much as for yourself. Because again, how we like to approach everything is not the audience, if we have to be honest, that's kind of, if they love it, they love it. But what we want to make sure is that you feel confident in what you're presenting, or you feel confident in understanding what your organization or what the individual wants to present to the world. So if it's the song of the Beatles that we like to put into our video, we're going to add that into the video because then it's going to allow you to feel like, wow, this is really telling a story that is deeper than what. And somebody from the audience might not pick that up, but you yourself know that. You understand that technically this was something that really means a lot to me. So when we try to approach our videos and we really try to tell our stories through videography, um, we want to bring it home. We want to tell the real authentic ways of like what made you come up to us and say like, hey, I want to be a part of this, or I want to talk about my organization's mission in real time. So for us, it's really about making sure that we can really be efficient with glorifying all the elements that kind of you want to bring out for yourself or bring out for your team or bring out for your organization, and then really approach it in a way that allows for it to be seen. And we want to highlight it. We want to highlight it in the videos that we do. And we like to do a lot of even metaphoric videos sometimes that it doesn't have to be one-on-one of you explaining your story, but you can do an illustration and is a narrating your story with your own voice. So there's all different ways to tell stories. There's not just one vision of like, okay, I got to be in front of the camera, but there's ways that you can just tell your story just by the different actions or even the people that you're working with, or even let's say testimonials of the people that you have been around.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about in regards to if the audience is going to love it, they're going to love it. And then on the flip side, if they don't, at least I was authentic and it's going to catch the people that I was trying to catch anyways.
Yeah.
Angie, I'm going to give you a question that wasn't on our predetermined Word document. You came into United Way and you started posting content that we've really never posted before. And it was trendy and it's fun. How was that process coming in here and making a change like that?
Oh, absolutely. I am a huge believer in the creative disruption trend that's happening right now, and that is steering clear of your brand's tone, voice, whatever you may call it. The idea is to do the BTS, the behind the scenes of what's going on in the office, but make it fun, make it experiment with content. I am a huge believer that social media is 10% strategy, 90% gut feelings. And so previously I've worked in social media for a while now. And so I came from the higher ed space and I was doing the same thing there. I do a ton of trainings. I do a ton of workshops where I'm telling people break that barrier, make that content engaging because you're going to see your numbers soar, your KPIs are going to grow. As soon as you stop giving that out there, or as soon as you just haul all of that fun content or that engaging piece, that's when you start to see your KPIs drop. And it's really critical to be able to show faces behind the brand, right? We have such a huge office filled with personalities, and that was my main goal.
Yeah, we talk a lot with 401 Gives about like the joy of the nonprofit sector, the joy that we bring in giving. And I think when you can show that joy behind the scenes and show how the nonprofit sector actually functions and everything that they do, you're going to drive that audience and you're going to drive that engagement a lot better. Um, so there's a lot of gut feelings, there's a lot of fun, but also there's technical work that happens in the background. And so Paige, I'm going to pop it over to you. What tools or software do you use for content creation, scheduling, managing the social media campaigns and posts, everything that also makes this a full-time office job?
Yeah, I mean, definitely while I'm running about getting content for Brian, I'm definitely spending many hours editing it. So I'm really going to focus on because a lot of social media work can be done with zero budget when it comes to content creation. So while some awesome apps that you might be able to use on your phone that are really, really simple to use or just very fast and easy. The easiest one would be CapCut. We all know about CapCut, but let's say that's not available to you. You're more than willing to edit content within the platforms itself. So whether you're editing within Instagram, when creating a photo post or a reel, or if you're really diving into your own TikTok channel, you can edit within TikTok as well. If you are looking for some type of app to edit in, my next best suggestion would be an app called InShot. It's really a video editing platform, but you can edit photos in there. It is free to use. There is a paid feature, but I use the free version. It works just as well, and it gets the job done in creating quality content, because that's what's really going to do best when we spend time creating this content that really means so much to us. Now, once you have your content made, you're going to want to maybe schedule it out. So you're not spending, 401Gives like at your computer trying to get all this content out. It's a lot going on. It's a busy, big day. So especially if you're focusing on Facebook and Instagram, your Meta Business Suite, so basically the back end of your Facebook page, which you can access through going to your Facebook page, and you can see on the side, it'll say Meta Business Suite. There is a scheduling tool within there that is, again, 100% free. You can schedule videos, photo posts, links going out if you're posting on Facebook to get people to donate to your organization. You can schedule as many things as you want through there. The only thing that you cannot schedule is a story, for example. So an Instagram story or a Facebook story, you're going to have to do that manually, but that's maybe something that you want to do in the moment that feels really exciting and exhilarating. A lot of this, you can start scheduling content out as soon as today if you really want to say, like, as soon as midnight hits on 401Gives, like, great, like, here we go. You can schedule everything and anything. So really look into the Meta Business Suite if you can. If you do have a scheduling agent within your organization, like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or Sprinkler, those are awesome tools to use as well. But I do know that they are a lot of money to use. So the Meta Business Suite will be your best bet. And then lastly, I believe it was managing social media campaigns and posts, right? Cool. So the biggest thing is this whole 401Gives is a social media campaign itself. So really you're going to want to sit down and say, like, what are my goals to get out of this when it comes to social media, your engagement, your maybe you want to drive people to click on a specific link so you can see how many times they click that specific link. It's all about trying to brainstorm and create content that's really going to drive those goals in the end. So don't put too much pressure on the numbers of, like, I need to get 100 views on this video or 50 likes on this post, because it's just going to put a lot of unnecessary pressure on you, and that content will then not be as authentic because you're really putting a lot of effort and overthinking it perhaps. So really focus on, like everyone has mentioned here, what is the message that you're trying to get across, and what is the best possible way that you can get that message across to create the most impactful campaign for yourself. So definitely I would suggest after this panel, go ahead, maybe sit down with your team, take 30 minutes and hash out your goals of what you want your campaign to look like for 401Gives.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray and Angie, are there any tools, tips, and tricks that Paige didn't talk about, but that came to your top of mind?
Yes, for me, audio is my biggest pet peeve. You want clear audio. You don't want that overhead, like 5 million year vent that has never been fixed. Audio is critical. You totally need that. We use Rode microphones. They're pricey. You can order one off of Amazon, $20. Lighting is critical. Your phone, please clean your phone lens. I beg you. If you don't clean your phone lens, you're gonna get smudges all over them. There are a ton of tutorials on how to optimize and get the best settings for your phone settings. But those are my biggest things. I particularly use a lot of paid software. So we use Premiere Pro in-house. We also have been using the Adobe Beta Podcast to enhance any audio or voice. I use a lot of Lightroom to be able to edit a lot of my pictures. We use Facetune. I do it all. So those are some of the softwares that I use.
Yeah, I mean, all the ones that I've mentioned have been great. I would go for the free options of all of them. Don't spend a ton of money on this. The only ones I would add, and I'll put them in the chat, are some audience listening tools. So if you're trying to compete on a day like 401Gives where everybody's posting, it is very aggressive. You want to at least have the right messaging and know what your competitors and peer organizations are talking about. So there's tools like Brandwatch that tell you like trending keywords and things that are popular on socials. It'll tell you about trends and certain things happening on socials that you might want to jump on the bandwagon of. Simple things like Google alerts. I'm making this up. If I am a food bank in Rhode Island, I want to have the term food bank Rhode Island on my Google alerts just to be in the know. If an article comes out, in the morning that says there's a desperate need for food banks, I know that as a social media manager or somebody who works in PR or comms, we need to put something out immediately that says, we're right here. We've been doing the work. And we wouldn't know that unless we had that alert that told us that that article came out. You just constantly want to be stalking the internet, and there's a bunch of free tools that help you do that.
Jude, a question for you that also wasn't on our predetermined Word doc. What are some of your pet peeves when it comes to videos on social media? Angie's is not wiping the lens, but what does it look like for you for those like more short form videos?
Um, I believe for me, the more short form videos is that sometimes um when you're not able to just like there's just too much talking. Sometimes less is more. So I think people want to try to condense so much in like this 30-second video. I think honestly just listening to the director and just being, hey, like this is what we want. Just give them a little teaser, and that can go a long way. So I think one of my pet peeves is just like maybe just overdoing it, but not in a negative way. I think sometimes people think that they have to overdo it. But honestly, what we have even seen just in trends and even backed up by different scientific methods of um, that people's attention spans is like ranging from like 15 seconds to 30 seconds, and different social medias have different attention spans. So like LinkedIn, you can go maybe for a minute. For TikTok, you have like at least 7 seconds. For Instagram, you have 15 to 30 seconds, and then people kind of lose their engagement. So you have to make sure that whatever social media platform that you're planning to post on, that you are aligning what video that you're posting on to fit that platform. So I would say that my biggest pet peeve is that sometimes like people want to live in their own direction and trying to condense so much in one. But sometimes less is actually more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that spreading out those stories is good too. We talked about it in the storytelling training a week or two ago, but it's okay to like leave your audience on a cliffhanger sometimes and spread out that content and keep them coming back. That's like how we watch TV shows. We go back to it because they don't tell us everything right away. And it's okay to distribute multiple content pieces over the course of like a month or so, as long as you're doing that scheduling that pages talk about, as long as you guys are promoting and creating engagement pieces that are clear and thought out and authentic. Also, Angie had a great piece of subtitles. Subtitles are so important, not only for accessibility reasons, but I started watching TV shows with subtitles and I just cannot seem to go back. And so if a video has subtitles, I'm more likely to watch it. Um, but I also want to go back to Paige and Angie here, and we're going to talk a little bit about ads. I feel like we talk about ads every year and we always have new opinions. And so how do you approach paid advertising on social media, and do you have any tips for optimizing ads?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about the quality of the content. We see ads every single day. We are sold to every moment of this day. So it's really, if you're going to put your money into paid advertising, especially through Meta, so that would mean Facebook and Instagram, really, really make sure it is worth it. And I mean that in the sense of your content is super strong, your caption and copywriting is super, super strong. And not in the sense of it's very informative, more of it's very engaging. Like I'm gonna want to stop my scrolling to make sure that I'm reading this ad, like, wow, this really caught my attention. I should be paying attention to it. And then also with that, it's when you're optimizing your ads, you're able to get so niche into Facebook advertising that is almost a little scary. But it's so critical, especially if you're specifically targeting people that are super into your organization. You want to target them for an age range, and you can run multiple ads at the same time for as low as $5. So even if you spend, just a week, this week I'm just going to spend $10 on this one ad, that's a success because people are at least seeing that this event is happening, that they maybe should support your organization. And also it's the whole thing of if someone's going to see it 3 times, on the 4th time, they're going to interact with it. So as long as you can get in front of them for as many times as you can, and this is where we say like quality over quantity at the end of the day, that is going to be your big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to it, I am a huge A/B testing fanatic. If you haven't tried A/B testing, it's really fun. A/B testing is practically using the exact same post, the exact same whatever your creative is, and then using 2 very different captions to be able to say, okay, on post number 1, it's going to be a completely different caption that might be engaging, and then let's test out the second piece of it. I'm also big into boosted posts. Boosted posts, it's just where you add some money behind any of your posts that you'd like to just go out into the wider audience, into the, I like to call it into the ocean. You're releasing all of these small little pieces of content into it, and people are just going to go ahead and see it. You don't have to go into demographics, who it has to be in front of. In terms of the paid ad side of things, I typically like to target age ranges as well as location. That's what makes sense for us in-house and for United Way. But whatever makes sense for you, for your demographic, if you are studying them, totally just be able to play around with it. And it's all about testing stuff out.
Yeah. Paige and Ray, how do you or how should an organization go about kind of choosing between Instagram and Facebook or choosing what post should go where?
Really good question. That is actually a question that I get on the daily here. Especially as a little background, I came to Bryant and they were blanket posting, as we call it. So putting the same post everywhere and calling it a day. Our hope is that you don't do that for your audiences, because on your social channels, so if you have multiple social channels, those are all different audiences. Take Instagram, for example, you're going to find your younger audience there. So you want to curate your content to kind of be a little more relatable to Gen Z in a way, maybe even your millennials and some Gen X's, but it's going to be, Instagram's going to be that younger audience. So go ahead and be a little unhinged over there. If you want to be posted on Facebook, that's where you're going to curate your content to maybe be a little more informative, but also eye-catching. So you're going to maybe do some interesting graphics or with your brand, or some really good photography or whatever it might be, but it's going to be a little more informative on Facebook. So that's where you're really going to have to see like who is interacting with your content and who, like, basically, how can I talk to them in a better way? How can I be more relatable to them that still gets my brand, my mission, and exactly what I want them to do across?
Yeah, I would also not sleep on LinkedIn. This is not a paid advertisement for LinkedIn, but so many nonprofits just put all their energy on Instagram, and it does get so competitive and it gets very saturated. But if you think about this, like LinkedIn, you might have a LinkedIn business page, your executive director might have, a lot of traffic and activity on their own personal page. Use that to your advantage. So you might be able to create, tailored audiences based on education level, net worth, things that are parallel to our donor profiles anyway, on LinkedIn, where it might be a little bit more general, more broad, and more demographic based on Instagram or Facebook. So right now, maybe 6 months ago, LinkedIn launched something called LinkedIn for Nonprofits, and they are super willing to help you out. I know for a fact that Rhode Island is like a blip on the map for them, but they're trying to get the state to be a little bit more active. So reach out. I'll drop a link in the chat if I can, and see if they'll even give you like an ad credit. $100 on LinkedIn is $1,000 on Facebook, because it's open. There's nobody competing with you on that space, especially for 401Gives right now. Tailor this communication to working professionals. Maybe these are your C-suite type folks who might be potential board members, potential volunteers, but who could also make a nice generous gift on 401Gives, right? It's a whole different space over there. Don't dismiss it.
That's great, Ray. Thank you. Angie, we had a question in the comments for you, back to A/B testing. So do you recommend including different posting times for A/B testing? So like posting something in the morning and then comparing engagement to a post scheduled for the afternoon?
Absolutely. So there are actually posting time heat maps. It's what works for your brand. I typically get through our own social media platforms. I know what times work best, so I'll go ahead and do for other organizations that I work for, A/B testing that you're able to do. I just launch them both at the same time, and kind of hope for the best. I just test them out, and whatever comes back, I analyze that timing. But just feel free to test it out. I mean, there are loads of TikTokers and people who are constantly talking about A/B testing. It really is about what works best for you.
Yeah, cool. I have a question now for Jude and Angie. So through the pandemic and into today, social media marketing has gotten kind of a rebrand with the way that we tell our stories, the way that we post, just what that content looks like, especially as younger professionals, i.e. this entire panel right here, are entering the space, and it's allowing for more risks, for more fun, for more creativity. And so how do you take those risks in your work, but also when it doesn't work out, how do you pivot?
Hmm.
Absolutely. I have adopted again that creative disruption trend. So I am just trying anything out that I've seen is trending online. But there's also that balance where I have adopted that evergreen content trend, where evergreen content, we all know we doom scroll through TikTok and it's all of these different dog videos or cat videos. That's something that never expires or it doesn't have an expiration date on it. That's something that we can adopt into our brands. We're able to go ahead and do that storytelling aspect by just, hey, Ray, give me a quick little 5-minute synopsis on your life. People love that. People love that authentic voice. Being able to have that conversation is critical. And it's just something as simple as being able to say, we're going to go ahead and do this evergreen content, but maybe I can save that content or that B-roll for a future video and I can convert it into a trend somehow.
I love exactly what Angie said. But one idea that even comes to me when it's like, let's say you try the trend or you try something, you're trying to pivot. First off, like really try to understand your why before you want to even try a trend. And I definitely understand that we want to try multiple different things. But let's say if it does not go the way you want it to go, or it maybe doesn't get as much traction, if you understand the reason why you want to give it a try, then it allows you to have like a little bit of a better understanding to like what you really want to curate yourself to. So really, I want to emphasize doing a lot of different research in terms of, yes, we're looking at different trends, finding out different things that can fit, or we want to just throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. But be intentional with what you're looking at. If it's, let's say if it's like I see right now a lot of like tutorials on how to like make or POVs on how like my life, if that can say, like, why do you want to show your life? What is the background behind like you saying like follow me today? So you can have like a little bit of understanding. So let's say it doesn't get as much traction, you're not kind of making it about you, or like I'm thinking, oh wait, I wasn't doing this enough, but it's kind of like, okay, maybe I just didn't align it perfectly with what I really want to do towards my brand or towards my organization, towards my mission. So just a little bit more like understanding towards your why, just in case something doesn't go your way, you understand how to pivot a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that Y piece still speaks to the authenticity that we're talking about here and doing things not just to do it, but also not trying to do everything at once. My advice for nonprofits when they participate in 401 Gives for the first time is don't try and do everything at once as big as it can be because you're going to overwhelm yourselves. And so stick to the things that you're really good at and that you know you'll be better at on the first try. But speaking about that authenticity piece, we've used that word a lot here. And so Jude, I'm going to start with you, but then ask a few others. What does it mean to you to be authentic in these storytelling spaces, in these social spaces?
To me, being authentic in these spaces, understanding that you're a human, letting yourself be a human, letting yourself make failures, letting yourself be able to be free with what you're learning and the knowledge and wisdom that you have. Because when you come with that mindset, then you allow yourself to be able to grow and you allow yourself to even be able to learn from others. Ray Nunez is big shout out because Ray was my first ever. I started working with Ray at my marketing agency. He's my friend, mentor, big brother. Like Ray has always been my guy. And when I first started working with Ray, it was just a place of like welcome. Like I just felt welcomed. I felt like I can be able to be myself. And with that being said, then I had the ability to be authentic. And then with my approach with others, I felt calm. I felt confident with how I presented myself because I showed up as myself and it was accepted. So that piece alone can really align and break a lot of boundaries or like be able to help build a lot of bridges as you move forward. So having that mindset that is really impactful when you're able to show up as yourself, when you're able to understand your why. That was what allowed me to be able to learn so much in the marketing field and be able to soak up and even be able to learn from others. Because I was showing up as myself and I felt like I was confident enough to be myself in these spaces.
Yeah, and I'm sure that comes through in the things that you do, and an audience can see that for sure. Paige, being in higher ed and doing social media, how does authenticity work for you?
So authenticity works a little different for us because especially I'm talking to so many different people on our many social channels. So I'm code switching a lot, but at the end of the day, it's showcasing that the students are being students here and it's showcasing that in the best way possible. So it's having them, if they're doing a really amazing project, sitting down with them and having them just pour their heart out about what they're doing in their classrooms. Or maybe we're going to work with a student organization and tell their story about how they're helping a really amazing nonprofit. Or at the end of the day, it could just be a student really just loves the Bryant community and they're going to tell me about it and they're going to showcase it through a day in their life or whatever it may be. So it's authenticity comes in the form of I don't want to paint the picture of this is what the Bryant graduates should look like because once they leave here, that's not I love that for them, but that's not my story to tell. That's for them to tell. So I'm here to tell what is the 20-year-old student doing at Bryant and what does it look like? Let's be real, let's be authentic, let's be a little raw. Like it's gonna be difficult some days, but it's also gonna be super rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what Jude was saying earlier about like, what's your why? Why am I making these stories? Why am I posting this? What messaging am I trying to get across right now? Ray, you wear a lot of hats, which means that you're making content kind of across the board. And so, what does authenticity look like for you in that kind of position?
Yeah, this real quick. I love you, Jude. Thank you for that. $20 goes a long way. That's what you get. Um, I want to get on the FBI watch list for this response. So in this current political climate, right, and we just have to be very, very blunt with what's going on right now. All of us who are federally funded, who are grant funded, who are foundation funded, who are in nonprofits, all of us, we're all right now paying attention of what line do we have to tiptoe across, right? How do we have to mask ourselves? How do we have to hide some words, hide some mission, parts of our soul of what we do and who we serve. So, as an organization in the private sector, I get to be uncensored, but I'm very cautious with my nonprofit partners around like that stress and that pressure they have to right now mask themselves a little bit more than usual. So that's really hard to balance. How do you stay authentic and also not lose your funding, right? And not panic your donors, not lose your staff, right? That's super real to everybody right now. But there's still ways to continue to show up as yourself and serve the community that you've always served in this really wacky political climate. I don't have any uncensored words to use for that, right? But it's a clown show. Things like not being able to use the word equity in certain materials. We could still show that through our video work. We could still do that through storytelling. We could still communicate that we are an inclusive organization or that we advocate for justice without having to be so literal in the language that we're using. That's just what we have to do right now. But the way that I'm looking at this, if my job as a storyteller is to capture the most authentic, raw, compelling version of you to communicate to your communities, I can't whitewash it. I can't just scrub all of who you've always been just for the sake of political climate. I have to continue to help you navigate it, but continue to show up as yourself. We've had many organizations that we work with reach out to say, hey, we need you to do the opposite of marketing for us. We need you to hide us from Google search results and take down our website and all those videos that exist. We need them scrubbed. And that's really heartbreaking for me as somebody who wants to show them off to the world and, shout from the rooftops about all the great things they do. And it's really sad. But our commitment to our communities and the folks that we serve, goes way, way above all that currently. We have to continue to show up. So that was a word vomit, Katie, but we gotta be real,
Yeah.
regardless of what's happening, around us in the political space.
Yeah, we got to be as authentic as possible, and sometimes that means saying words that are not palatable always.
Yep.
Angie, I want to give you space to talk about authenticity, but I know that you've also been very forward about creative disruption, and you've been doing this work since the minute you came in. If anybody wants to look at Angie's authenticity, go to the United Way Instagram. She's been very forward with content, but I want to give you space to answer that same question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came from the higher ed space, and coming from an Ivy League to now, oh my gosh, this is like my time to shine and be able to really just amplify any voice, any content. It's such a blast. It really has been for me. Coming from such a buttoned up brand to now saying, this is United Way. We see the brand all the time. I love Courtney Nicolado. We see Courtney all the time. We see Kyle Bennett all the time. But what about the rest of the staff? Let's go ahead and give them the spotlight because they deserve it.
Yeah. And I think that for the people who are watching the panel, if you're thinking to yourself, like, how do I find the authenticity in my nonprofit? Sit down and have these same conversations with your staff. Make a 20-minute meeting and say, what is the most authentic thing to you? And read through those responses. Or say, how does this organization's mission and story show up in your life? And do those kind of roundtable moments. For a moment at United Way, we were doing points of pride where we would come around, we would talk about those things. And being able to share stories together sometimes then amplifies and continue those stories themselves. We do have a few more questions to finish up as we're coming to the latter half of the panel, but we have some questions in the comments that I want to address. Thank you, Ray, for answering the metrics one. But what learning tools do you recommend to get started? And I want to scale this down and take off your communication professionals hat and what is really easy for staff. So does this look like a YouTube video that you really like? Does this look like showing your staff which way to take a picture? Like, how are you learning yourselves every day, and how would you recommend someone start? And
I use
anybody can open.
Totally. I use TikTok to research almost everything. So I take off all of my hats of all the tools I know. TikTok is your best friend. Same thing with Instagram Reels. I mean, what better way to learn about something than the platform itself? Also, Hootsuite is a great tool. You can go into Hootsuite and they have a plethora of just case studies and ways for you to really amplify your social media platforms.
I would say, if you're looking to, maybe up your photography game a little bit, but a professional camera is not in the budget, you can take a near professional photo with your iPhone or Android camera, and by simply Googling best camera settings. And by doing that, for me personally, I have been able to up my front-facing photography game a whole lot better. Really, like, if you have an iPhone and you have cinematic mode on it, go ahead and play with that. It can create some very nice depth effect to some videos. Like, just Googling, the best settings to have for your camera can make a world's difference itself.
Yeah, and if you don't feel comfortable with those camera settings, find a chronically online teenager and they will be. They will be your best friend. We have another question. Are there any specific organizations other than United Way that you all follow from anywhere in the world whose content you love watching?
Oh yeah, I love the marketing millennials. They're hysterical. Um, they're so funny. I highly recommend. I also subscribe to a ton of e-newsletters, so I'm on like Social Media Today, the Marketing Brew, online. I personally love following Duolingo. They're funny. That's why I follow them. But sincerely, like I follow more other social media managers in the field who are doing the work because this is the one thing that I've learned that every single social media manager posts on LinkedIn all their fails. Let me tell you about how this one campaign was such a great idea and then it failed. But this is what I learned. So that's exactly who I follow. Those are the people that I'm constantly following. I mean, I also am a huge person. I love comedy, so they're typically people with the biggest personalities. So that's
Yeah,
For me, I can
Jude. Yeah, there you go.
jump in. I actually feel like the storytelling aspect, I follow Humans of New York. And their page, you can just see and read a lot of their stories. And you can just even by the images that they capture and then the wording that they put in the description, you can get a real feel of the story. So from the storytelling aspect, Humans of New York is something that I really like to follow a lot of. And as you take time to read the stories that are written in the post. And going back to that question previously, real quick, sometimes definitely getting started with the tools that you have, but sometimes I know for me, even just sometimes it gets overwhelming. So just writing things on a notebook, like get actually taking your thoughts out and jotting them down on like a journal, because that right there is also doing something, just taking that step forward to like take out the ideas that you have in your mind and write them out can also move you forward to get picking up the camera and like taking these different shots. But if it gets too overwhelming, really just it sounds simple, but sometimes it goes a long way. Just writing things out will allow you to kind of break that barrier.
Yeah. When we're also talking about 401 Gives and organizations to follow and what's happening out there, um, simply just go through the tag and look at what people are posting. Like Amenity Aid posted a really silly thing yesterday. Children's Friend, MLK Community Center, they'll make their own kind of logos that center around 401 Gives. Waterfire has been like super active on TikTok, which is great. Newport Pride is super active on TikTok. But just find people that are in your peer groups and also that mimic your capacity and your staff size. You don't want to be following someone like a Duolingo, which is so funny, and I love watching that owl so much. But if you're a one-person staff, you're not going to be able to replicate all the way up to that. So find your peer organizations and work together on some of those things. Um, Ray, I'm gonna really put you on a spotlight here, but also Paige, because I know that you've watched 401 Gives for some time. How has 401 Gives content changed throughout the years, and what things do you see evolve?
Yeah, so this is my 5th year anniversary working behind the scenes on 401 Gives. So for further context, my wife and I, we've been working the marketing, the paid ads, and the socials for 401 Gives since its 2nd year. And she should really be on this call because she's the one who leads a lot of the socials, but she hates humans. She hates doing this. So, a lot of what we've seen over the time is like the first year, it was very much like people were like 401 Gives curious. They're like, I think we're participating in this thing. We're not quite sure. The 2nd year was like incredibly educational. Everybody was doing white papers around who they are and their mission and who they serve. And it felt like ChatGPT before ChatGPT. Everybody was just giving us like long form. And then folks realized in the 3rd year, which now you're in the middle of the pandemic, like nobody has time for that. Nobody has time for reading. We need to go short form. We need to go video. We need to go interviews, testimonials. Like it just needed to be quick. And the 3rd year was my favorite because that's when we really got like creative with it. We started to get a little bit more risky in our content. One of my favorite things is that 401 Gives is an independent body on social media, and it doesn't have to follow, United Way's brand standards. So we got to post a ton of memes. We got to get a little witty and a little punny and a little sarcastic, and a little Wendy's-esque, and it worked. People really, really started to follow suit, and it was really cool to see people like try to compete with each other. Shout out to West Place Animal Sanctuary. That was the first year that they did their animal videos. I don't know if anybody's seen those. Hilarious. They were doing like a TV show interview type thing where they had this dude with a microphone and like an old 70s suit, and he was just interviewing the animals. Like that did not come up in the past 45 minutes of us talking about social content strategy. That's just them using their thing. This is their gimmick, right? And it worked. It went like semi-viral in Rhode Island. We picked it up. We started pushing it. They got press from that, and that became kind of their staple piece. So I don't know. I've loved the growth. I've loved the progress. And this year, this is my call out to all of you. This is quiet this year. Folks are reverting back to year 2 or year 1. And I understand it's for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. But I'm going to encourage you to use this as like therapy and a little bit of social relief for your organization, because I know you haven't been able to do that for the past, 2 months and beyond. So yeah, it's been super cool. I love seeing the ways that people get creative with it.
Yeah, 401 Gives is an excuse to step away from your brand guidelines. It's an
Yeah.
excuse to do funny things because you have the backing of other organizations doing funny things. It's a giving day that lasts for 36 hours. Like, this is your chance to try out things, have risk, be authentic, all the
Mhm.
things that we've been talking about here. But also, like Ray said, use it as therapy. Like, let this be a place where you can just really like have fun in these really uncertain times. And so we're coming in on our last question. So we're going to go across the board with one specific question. But if anybody else has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And panelists can either type over to them, or if we have some time at the end, we'll talk about them out loud. So I'm going to start with Paige, and then I'll kind of go across my screen. But if you could go back to the first day that you started, either the role that you have now or what you consider to be kind of your social media career, what would you give yourself advice on? What would you do different, or what would you prep yourself up for?
I would say, and especially, I know we keep talking about it, but especially in the environment that we're in, people want to sometimes go on social media to escape the world. And sometimes our job is to simply make them smile or laugh. And taking that when I'm now creating content and being a little more, risky with it, being a little more unhinged, just having fun with it has made my job a whole lot more easier, but also fun. And I'm seeing that through engagement, and I'm seeing that through comments I hear through the grapevine here at Bryant. But if I had learned that probably very early on, that it's absolutely okay and we should be in the market to make people happy and laugh, you can transform your brand with that.
Yeah. Jude, as a small business owner, a storyteller, if you could go back and tell either little Jude even or Jude on day one of owning a business, what would you tell him?
I will honestly tell them it's not, you shouldn't be afraid to tell your story. And I know that comes from my organization. It's called Based on a True Story, but sometimes it's really hard to tell your own story. And we help other people tell their story, but you kind of get nervous when you hold your story closer to your heart. But I hear nothing but positive feedback. And honestly, it allows me to continue to be myself. And what I said earlier, it lets you grow more in your confidence. So as much as it might feel a little bit difficult, it's good to feel uncomfortable. When you feel uncomfortable, that's when you get the ability to grow and learn. So I'll tell little Jude, don't be afraid to tell your story. If I look back at myself, I'm pretty happy, or well, I'm happy where I'm at right now. So just be able to look back and smile at yourselves and say that you have a story and it's worth telling.
Yeah. Angie, day one, what are you telling yourself?
Find Ray Nunez faster and make him adopt you. Like that would be number one. No, honestly, for me, I would just say go with the flow. Like, don't take on more than you can chew because at the end of the day, not only are you social media manager, you're also the person who's doing photography, videography, running a strategy, buying coffee, and doing all this chaotic things. It's just enjoy the moment. You're gonna have your dream life. It's all gonna be okay.
Yeah. And Ray, day one, 401 Gives. What are you saying to
Day
little
one.
Ray?
Damn, that's a hard one. So we've been in business for 5 years, but I mean, I've been in social media marketing and brand development for like as long as I could speak English. And I would definitely tell little Ray to stop trying to like chase those big accounts and trying to fit into the mold of what my peer organizations are doing. Like when we started, we were like, we want to be, bleep this out, Katie. Don't let this in the recording. We want to be Adventures and Nail and Hill Holiday, and we want to be all of them, right? And we found very quickly, luckily, that we don't want to be them, and they're not us, right? And they can't be us. And we're competing on totally different spectrums. But if I knew that from the beginning, that anxiety of like, should I position myself in this certain way? Should we build a brand in this certain way? Would have been totally gone because I would have been really comfortable leaning into ourselves. We rebranded our organization within the first 8 months of being in business because we realized like that doesn't even look like us. We took these like bullshit like corporate stock photos at the CIC, and like it was like all fake, it's like me and my wife like writing on a whiteboard. Like none of that was real, but we thought that's what we needed because everybody had that on their websites. And we quickly changed, our look and feel, but also changed our mission. We weren't your full service ad marketing creative creative studio agency firm. Like we weren't all things to all people. We were an anti-racist marketing agency, take it or leave it, right? And we really stayed true to our values since then. I would tell little Ray to like get that out of his head and just move forward to where he needs to be.
Yeah. I think the notes that we're hearing consistently in this panel is authenticity, knowing your why, having fun, being creative, all the things that we all love to do. But as soon as we're kind of captured in an organization, we feel decision paralysis, we feel weighted by guidelines. And so let 401 Gives be your excuse to step out and try new things because it'll probably work. People have made some interesting videos, whether it be talking animals or dancing GIFs, and it works and it continues to work. So we're 4 minutes left. I don't see any questions in the chat, so we'll give you 4 minutes back to your day. Thank you all so, so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Feel free to throw some places that we can find you in the chat. But again, this will be recorded and posted so everybody has access to it. But thank you all so, so much for today. This is always one of my favorite panels, and today it showed up just the same.
Thank you, Katie, for continuing to do the work.
Yeah, my favorite part of my job. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.